Thank you all for coming out. Let me get a little situated here. I'm like Annika said, I'm a farmer. I'm not a presenter, so it's a small crowd, but still a little nervous being up on a stage, talking into a microphone. So I appreciate you all coming out today. Hopefully, you learn a little bit from my presentation and can help you along your journey. So I titled today's talk, Drip, Handline, Big Guns, Booms, a vegetable irrigation story. So it's really a talk about our farm and kind of the process we've gone through, learning about different irrigation techniques and what's worked and hasn't worked for us. Yeah, thanks everyone for coming. Thanks to the Whatcom Conservation District. All the support through the community. Hi, Elizabeth. Just before I get going, I also want to pay my respect to the Nooksack tribe, whose ancestral land we live on and farm. So I'm going to get into it. So here's our logo. This is myself and my wife Sarah Robinson own and operate Springtime Farm. We're a certified organic vegetable operation in Everson. We primarily do a community-supported agricultural program, like a box program, as well as sell to wholesale accounts throughout the Puget Sound region. So if you've ever gone shopping at the co-op or eaten, we did the Bellingham Farmers Market for years. If you've eaten local head lettuce, there's a good chance it was grown by us. This is our 10th year owning and operating our own business. Every year is a new challenge. Every year we learn so much. So by no means am I an expert in any of this. It's kind of just experiential learning. It's a process, and if you guys are going out starting your own vegetable farm, feel free to talk to me after, but also all these resources out there can help you along that journey. So here is an aerial photo of our farm a couple years ago. So like I said, we're located in Everson. We're actually located on the what is considered the headwaters of the Sumas. You can see the little bit of water there on the right. That's what the locals call kind of the pond or marsh, but that does flow into the Sumas River, even though we're about a half mile from the Nooksack River. We've got like clay, silt, loam soils. They're what I consider prime agricultural soils, but a couple feet down we do have quite a bit of clay. So drainage isn't as good in the spring, but it makes for really good irrigation in the summer when the vegetables need the water. We've owned this property for 7 years now. We started out on another property, renting land, which was like a sand silt, and the irrigation needs there were much different. So it's been interesting kind of transitioning soil types and learning how plants' needs for water change throughout that. So I just, here's my attempt at a PowerPoint. A couple of slides. Here's the Nooksack and Mount Baker. We'd be amiss to not really talk about how lucky we are to live in the Northwest, where we have such an abundant supply of clean water. And this is where that water is coming from. Here's a quick photo of my wife Sarah and myself some years ago helping a friend dig a hand dug well. So many wells in the county and around the country used to be hand dug, not as wide as this in some circumstances, and usually a lot deeper. Most farms, agricultural farms, are able to pull groundwater from not too deep, depending on where you're at. I'm sure all of you guys have wells at your homes. My experience is that depending on your location, you could have a well from anywhere from 10 to 70 feet in this county. Well, maybe 10's a little short, but 15. So knowing your water quality, your source, how much you have available, proximity to power, and so what you're going to be using to pump, that's all going to determine what kind of irrigation methods you're going to be using. This well we helped dig ended up being about 18 feet, and they had about 100 gallons a minute. So that was impressive. I have a farmer friend who now is in his 90s in Colorado. He helped dig a 150-foot well by hand. You know, I have friends that farm in San Juan County. I know their wells are going 350 feet. In the Salinas Valley of California, they're pumping water 500 feet out of the ground. So, you know, we're going 15 feet here. We're lucky. And I will say one thing I have noticed, and maybe you all know this too, but the water in Whatcom County does tend to be fairly rich in iron. That's kind of one of the general characteristics. So you're going to have to sort that out depending on what kind of irrigation you're doing. You'll see some berry farms do kind of like settling ponds and things like that to deal with that, or more expensive filtration systems. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of run through the different types of irrigation that we've done. We started out, this is the photo on the left, was our first farm, using aluminum hand line. So I convinced my now wife to join me in farming, and I also asked her for $2,000 to go buy some aluminum hand line. And so that was our first farm purchase. We bought a trailer and 2,000 feet of 3 and 4 inch pipe. These are 30 or 40 foot long pipes that each have one sprinkler on them, and they just fit together with like a simple latch, and there's a gasket in there. There's a couple different companies that make them, but typically, yeah, and I guess you could probably even buy them new, but I haven't heard about people doing that. And they're great. They put a lot of water down. So you can really like soak an area if you want to. They typically use like high flow, low pressure pumps. So if your power dictates that, you know, that's a good way to go. And what else is good about? That's kind of all that's good about them, I think. What I don't like is that you have to move them by hand. They get in the way. You typically are moving them at the end of an irrigation cycle, so the ground is either muddy or wet. There's probably water still in them, so it ends up leaving big puddles. They get lost in the weeds. One of your employees inevitably drives over them, and since they're aluminum, they crush and then they're done. So those are some of the cons, but we still have those two, well, now it's probably like 1,800 feet of aluminum pipes, and we still use them, but only sparingly. Here's a couple photos of not our farm. I didn't have any photos of drip tape on our farm, but we do use a little bit of drip. Drip tape, I think probably most people are familiar with it. It's just like a plastic tube with little emitters. And it's fairly inexpensive. It's nice because you can deliver water right to where you want it. So we typically will use it on more sensitive crops, things that are more disease prone, so tomatoes, peppers, and we also use it a little bit in our plasticulture, so we'll do like sometimes peppers, melons, squash, using this plastic, and then with a thing of drip tape underneath it. And so that way we're getting extra heat from the radiation on the plastic, and then minimizing weeds, because we're not watering any of the other ground. It's great for that. I do find that you know, drip tape will kind of, since you're not irrigating a larger area, it kind of tends to make weaker plant roots, since they don't have to stretch for the water. One benefit is you're able to put fertilizer through the drip line, so that's kind of nice. But the biggest con of drip tape for me is that it's plastic and you have to clean it up at the end of the year, and it inevitably ends up as trash. So yeah, we have tended to move away from that. I do know a lot of farms, like in California. Actually, doing this research, I learned that drip tape was invented in Israel, because they're farming in a desert there, and water is so precious. It's basically illegal to waste any, and so, you know, more and more farms are moving towards drip, buried drip, drip that's almost permanently placed, you know, 6 inches under the ground, things like that. But I'm just talking about our farm. So, yes, and then I'm going to talk about irrigation reels. So here's a couple photos of our two of our irrigation reels. We switched from using hand line to these. The one on the right is a Kifco, and the one on the left is a Bauer. These are like the smallest irrigation reels basically on the market. The Kifco, we've found them used, and some of them are quite old. But the way an irrigation reel works is there's a single larger sprinkler on the end of a hard hose, and there's a winding mechanism. So you pull it out, and there's a winding mechanism that retracts the sprinkler back onto the reel. So at the end of the irrigation set, there's nothing in the pipe, and you've irrigated the whole area. The Bauer, we just bought this last year. I'm trying to remember, I think it was like $13,000, and that is able to irrigate about 3 acres in one run, and it takes about 6 hours to do that. So it's great because it is a labor saving. I don't have to go out and move the pipe. I'm able to do that pretty much all from the tractor seat. It retracts itself, so there's nothing in the field at the end of the irrigation cycle. So when you want to go out and cultivate the weeds a couple days later, there's nothing there to be in your way. And it does a really nice uniform job. I'd say the cons of this type of equipment is, one, they're expensive to purchase. It takes more time to irrigate that area versus like a hand line. And it's more expensive to run because I'm running my pump for 6, 7 hours versus you know, a couple hours. But electricity is fairly cheap compared to our time. So we've really liked it, and we've switched most of our irrigation towards using these reels. Here's a photo of me standing next to the Kifco, and so just for a little scale, these are small reels. Our Bauer, which is about 2 or 3 times bigger than the Kifco, we're putting out 50 gallons a minute. Some of the big reels you'll see out in the potato fields or on the grass corn fields around here, they're doing 300, 400 gallons a minute. So, you know, we use a lot of water, and through doing research for this project, I actually learned that there was a study back in 2017. It's like Whatcom County agriculture, we're using 7 billion gallons of water a month through June, July, August. Our farm, we use somewhere in the range of 150 to 200,000 gallons to grow 15 acres of vegetables. You know, it's a finite resource. And so we want to do our part to save some of that water. So this year we're switching towards the picture on the left, a boom. So instead of that big gun sprinkler at the end of the reel, we're going to have this boom. It's a 100-foot boom with a series of micro sprinklers that just direct the water down towards the plant, minimizing loss through evaporation. Those big gun sprinklers, to kind of maximize the area they're watering, they kind of shoot up at like anywhere from a 10 to 20 degree angle. And sometimes, you know, you want to irrigate during the day because something might go wrong, and you want to know that before you wake up in the morning. And anyways, you know, it's the heat of the summer. 50% of that water is just lost through evaporation. So it never even reaches the ground. So this boom is going to help save a lot of water. And so we're pretty excited about that. And then, you know, there's a lot of, we have a few greenhouses. The photos on the left and right actually aren't our greenhouses, but there's a bunch of different little sprinklers for watering greenhouses and little areas if you guys are interested into that. For our starts, you know, we typically just use the hand hose, and that works great. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about those. And then other areas, you know, people are doing flood irrigation, center pivots, wheel lines. You know, if you're driving through agricultural areas, you'll see all sorts of different types of irrigation methods, and these aren't common to Whatcom County. Kind of the drip and irrigation reels are what you'll see around here. And then, yeah, just, you know, got to touch on it. Climate change, it's happening. So we're using more water to deal with the heat waves. You know, for annual vegetables, when it was in the hundreds a couple years ago, you know, the only way our vegetables made it through was I irrigated them more. It's just a necessity. You know, conversely, our winters are maybe flooding more. So there's a photo of me walking through our field 2 winters ago. Yeah, it's, you know, I hate to, I realize I made this presentation and left it on this note, but yeah, it's important. We all need food, we all need water, and I think there's a lot to learn out there, and I'm really excited about irrigation and growing vegetables, and yeah, hope you guys learned something. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great. Thanks for not leaving on a Zoom.
Whoa, basically did.
I'm happy to take questions from the audience. All right.
I have a quick and easy question. Do you have a flow meter on your well pump? Are you wondering how much water you're actually putting down?
You know, we bought a like $5,000 computer to monitor our, well, it sounds fancy. It's not, to monitor our pump, and it does not tell me how much flow is going on. So that calculation I gave you, 150 to 200, I know how many times I irrigated, and I know roughly how long the sprinklers were running. So that was pretty dirty math. Yeah.
Other questions for Nick?
I think they will be. So they are talking about doing a water adjudication process through this county, where they're going to go through and figure out exactly how much water is being used, who's using it, where it's needed to go. And so I imagine in the coming decades, we're all going to have meters on our pumps telling us how much water we're actually using. Yeah. Any other questions?
I want to ask, when we were talking about drip lines, you talked about a benefit of being able to push fertilizer through. Do you have experience? I can't remember. Did you say that you have used drip lines on your farm? And how did that work for your farm of being able to, like, the convenience of pushing fertilizer through?
It works great. Yeah, so the question, running fertilizer through drip lines, how does it work? It's probably the easiest way to deliver liquid fertilizer. And it's the most economical because it gets it right to the plant. We tend not to do that in an organic setting. It's helpful when the plants are stressed, but it's kind of just like, I guess we do it. We've done it, and it works great. There's a longer conversation there about plant health and whether that's just kind of like a Band-Aid over the larger issue, but yeah.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but you did. There are two things related to water savings. One is that you can use your existing right to cover more land. The other one is that you are not using your full water right, and under Washington law you can lose it. So that's one of the things people are going to be talking to the legislators about. Adjudication is going to be a mess.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't know if people heard him. Under Washington state law, if you're not using your full water right, you can lose that part of it or all of it.
You can lose the part that you're not using.
The part that you're not using, and then conversely, if you're not using it all on your land, you could share it or use it onto neighboring lands.
There are ways of doing that, yes.
You should talk to this guy about that. I don't know.
And actually, Department of Ecology is here and is an exhibitor that can talk a little bit more about exactly that. So, as a prompt. One more question for you. What is the name of your farm and how could somebody sign up for a CSA?
Yes, Springtime Farm. So I didn't mention this, but my last name is Spring. My grandfather actually started the original Springtime Farm. He was a vegetable farmer in upstate New York. So we started the farm here in Everson. And you can go online, springtimefarm.com. We've got a website. I've got some business cards if you're interested. You guys probably all grow your own vegetables, so I'm not going to try to sell you a box program, but we do that. And love to support other farmers and talk to you guys about how you're doing it. So holler at me after if you want to talk.
Excellent. And another plug, we at Whatcom Conservation District have a lot of resources for irrigation as well as fertilizer manure application at our farm planning booths. So right as you walked in the greeter booths to the right, we have some different programs around irrigation water use efficiencies. We have a rebate program actually for residential water users. So go and check out Whatcom Conservation District's booth for some of those resources. And unless there's any other questions.
I have one question for the crowd. Who of you all farms currently? Nice. Do the rest of you want to be farmers?
They're farmer interested.
Nice. Well, my advice to you, if you haven't already done it, is either go work on another farm or even just for a couple days, go help some farmer out and that is doing something that along the lines of what you might want to do, because they've already made a lot of mistakes that you can learn from. So, yeah.
Very, very true. Well, thank you, Nick. Let's give him a hand.
Thank you.